They built 92 homes on my land not by mistake, but by design. I inherited 50 acres in Montana from my father. Paid off, untouched, quiet. 3 years later, I came back to visit and found a suburban dream where my Pine Ridge used to stand. Paved streets, mailboxes, SUVs, and kids tossing frisbees. An entire subdivision had swallowed my land whole. The HOA president Pearls, spray tan, the kind of smile that hides contempt, called me a trespasser. Told me I was harassing the residents. Claimed their attorney confirmed the property had been unclaimed for years. So adverse possession made it theirs. She bragged about closing $20 million in pre-sales. Here's what I did. Nothing. I waited. Let them finish. Every inch driveways, decks, mailboxes, and manicured lawns. Then I walked into federal court with my father's original 1,973 deed in hand. What would you do if someone built a town on your property? Drop your state in the comments. Let's see where my land rights family's watching from. My name's Mason Holt, like the hardware store. No relation. I'm 45, an industrial designer, divorced. I drive a 2006 Ford F-250 that groans every time I start it. Nothing special about me, except one thing. My father left me 50 acres of mountain foothill worth just under $5 million. James Holt bought it in '73 for $9,000 cash, kept every receipt in cigar boxes labeled by year. When he passed in 2020, he left me the land with one note tucked under the title: "Don't let the snakes steal what I worked for." Oh, 3 years later, I finally drove out. Between layoffs, custody hearings, and 60-hour weeks, I hadn't had time to visit. But I paid every tax bill, $6,900 a year, never missed. In August 2023, I turned off County Road 18 and froze. The ridge was gone. In its place stood rows of Spanish-style homes with matching mailboxes and Arbor Hills, a Silverline community, engraved in stone at the entrance. At the gate, a rent-a-cop waved me down. "Residents only. I own this property," I said, showing the deed photo on my phone. He laughed. "And I'm Bill Gates." "Turn around, pal." That's when she arrived. A white Lexus rolled up. Out stepped Claudia Silverline. Late 50 seconds, diamond watch flashing. The permanent expression of someone who's never heard the word no. "Problem, Daniel?" she asked the guard, not even glancing at me. "This man says he owns Arbor Hills," the guard muttered. She looked me up and down. Work boots, dusty jacket, oil-stained jeans, and gave a smirk that could freeze water. "Oh, that's cute. If you're here for a construction job, we're already staffed. But I'll take your number, just in case. I'm not looking for work. I'm the legal owner of this." She gestured at the neighborhood behind her. "That's funny." She pulled out her phone, tapping nails painted a shade called Power. "Our lawyers checked the chain of title. Property was abandoned for 3 years, so per Montana statute 701-9411, we've established ownership." "Not if taxes were paid," I said. Her grin sharpened. "You know just enough law to hurt yourself." She flicked a business card at me. "Talk to our attorney, Stephen Barr. He'll explain why your claim is dead on arrival." "How many homes sold?" I asked. "All 92. Families moving in next month. We don't take kindly to squatters." Then she lifted her phone and took a picture of my license plate. "Just in case you decide to vandalize anything. Smile for security." I went home with my hands trembling. Spread my father's papers across the kitchen table. The 1,973 deed, tax receipts, county letters. She'd threatened me, mocked me, and handed me every piece of evidence I needed. The next morning, I called her lawyer. His secretary had that tone, fake sweet, like a customer service rep who's already decided you're not getting a refund. "Mr. Barr is unavailable, but he's authorized to offer you a $20,000 settlement if you sign a quit-claim deed by Friday. $20,000 for $5 million worth of land. Tell Mr. Barr I'll see him in court," I said, and hung up. I needed a heavyweight attorney, not the guy who handled my divorce on a Groupon. A friend from Bozeman gave me a name, Rachel Vaughn. Won a case against an oil developer so cleanly they tried to hire her. Her office smelled like leather and old books. No receptionist, just quiet confidence. She listened without interrupting, pen barely moving as I spoke. When I finished, she said, "Show me proof of tax payment." I handed her a folder thick enough to double as a doorstop. Every receipt since 1973. She read silently for a minute, then exhaled through her nose a sound that somehow felt like victory. Montana law requires 10 years of continuous hostile occupation and payment of taxes. You've paid. They haven't. Their claim is a fantasy. So I can shut them down now? You could, she said, closing the folder. But don't. I frowned. What? If you stop them now, Silverline Developments declares bankruptcy, and you spend years in lawsuits against innocent homebuyers. But if you wait until they finish, you'll own 92 completed homes and evidence of criminal fraud. Then we sue for declaratory judgment. You win the land and everything built on it. It was ruthless, calculated, brilliant. How much will it cost? $45,000 in fees, maybe $50,000. But when we win, they'll pay it along with damages for trespass and fraud. You'll come out with assets worth millions. I had $14,000 to my name. My truck's transmission was shot. My son's tuition bill sat on the counter. But I heard myself say, "Let's do it." She leaned forward. "And Mason, don't contact Claudia. Don't post online. Don't even whisper about this. Surprise is leverage." I signed the retainer that day. September bled into October. I drove past Arbor Hills twice a week, parking on the county road, filming progress from my dash cam. Framers hammered, painters sprayed, electricians ran wires. Every visit, I snapped time-stamped photos. By the third week, Claudia spotted me. She called someone I could see her pointing. 20 minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser rolled up. Deputy Rhodes, mid-20 seconds, polite but nervous. "Sir, I need your license." "I'm on public property," I said. He sighed. "Mrs. Silverline says you're stalking her, taking photos." "I'm documenting construction on my land. Parcel 112-89407. Owner, Mason Holt. Check the county registry." He looked genuinely uncomfortable. "Look, if there's a dispute, that's civil court. But she's filed a complaint. Just don't come back. Okay?" Translation: she donates, I don't. I nodded. He left. I stayed. By November, families were moving in. U-Hauls, pizza boxes, kids on scooters. These weren't villains, just people who'd bought into a dream. It wasn't their fault. But Claudia was about to learn what it costs to steal from a Holt. Thanksgiving week, I got a certified letter. Return address: Silverline Development, LLC. The postal clerk, Mrs. Danner, recognized it. "That's that lady building those overpriced houses, huh? My nephew tried to buy one. $500,000 for a shoebox." She slid the envelope across the counter. "Highway robbery," she muttered. I opened the letter in my truck. Fancy letterhead. A cursive signature at the bottom. Brian Keller, Counsel for Voss Development. 3 pages of dense legalese that boiled down to one sentence. "Stop showing up on our property, or we'll sue you for harassment." Taped to the last page was a photograph. My pickup parked on the county road, taken from inside the subdivision. Someone had circled my plate in red marker. In the margin, a note in spidery handwriting. "Document everything." I drove straight to Rachel Vaughn's office. She read the letter, then did something I'd never heard her do before. She laughed. Not the polite, lawyerly chuckle, but a full belly laugh that shook her shoulders like she'd just been handed a lucky break. "They're handing us evidence," she said, dabbing her eyes. "Every threatening letter, every photo. Every time they call the sheriff, it proves they knew there was a dispute and kept building anyway." I sat there feeling equal parts relieved and stalked. "It doesn't feel like a gift." "You're right," she said. "It feels like harassment. But here's what you're going to do. Nothing. Let them burn money on threats. Let them create a paper trail. We file in January, right after the holidays when everyone's attention is elsewhere. She flipped open a legal pad. In the meantime, get me everything on Claudia Voss. Corporate filings, property records, tax liens, financing anything public. Who's bankrolling this? For the next 2 weeks, I turned into a very slow, very stubborn private investigator. Being an engineer helped. I can read plats, parse permit PDFs, and follow survey lines the way other people follow crossword clues. County records were the obvious place to start. Voss Development LLC was incorporated in Delaware. Red flag. Delaware filings are convenient when you're trying to keep ownership fuzzy. The operating agreement listed Claudia as the managing member, but the money came from Crestline Capital, an investment outfit in Denver. Crestline's public filings showed 3 partners. One of them, Gregory Voss, shared Claudia's last name. Digging deeper, I found suit histories. Gregory's company had been sued twice for construction defects and once for investor fraud on a failed mountain resort. Settlements and sealed records. This wasn't a lone operator's gamble, it was a family operation with a track record. Then I found the permits. The county permit history included an adverse possession claim filed in March 2022. But adverse possession doesn't work like a vending machine. You don't file a claim and then immediately sell the goods. You prove your case in court, record the judgment, then change title. Voss Development had skipped that step. They filed the claim, pulled permits, marketed lots, and took deposits as if the courthouse stamps had already happened. That's not a legal shortcut. That's fraud, deliberate documented fraud. I zipped the files and sent them to Rachel in an encrypted message. An hour later, her phone buzzed. Mason, this is worse than I thought. Gregory Voss has a pattern. If we can show he knew you owned the land and built anyway, we're not just in trespass. We're in fraud and criminal intent. She didn't explain how. That was her job. Mine was to keep my head down. Keeping my head down got harder fast. On December 3rd, the county code office called. A tired man on the line introduced himself as Carl Benson from Code Enforcement. Mr. Holt, we've received a complaint that you're operating an illegal dumping site on parcel 2311407. What? I don't even live there. That parcel has houses on it now. There are reports of construction debris, abandoned vehicles, possible hazardous waste. I'm required to inspect. If violations are confirmed, fines start at $500 per day. I drove up that afternoon and recorded the inspection on my phone. The property was immaculate except for the 92 houses with freshly laid driveways and identical mailboxes. No trash piles, no rusting cars, nothing hazardous. Carl Benson met me at the gate, clipboard in hand, face weathered from 1,000 complaints. He walked the perimeter, checked behind houses, photographed siding, and finally returned, shaking his head. There's nothing here, he said. Someone filed a false complaint. Who? I asked. He hesitated. Anonymous tip. But it routed through Mrs. Voss's office as a concerned citizen complaint. We've seen this pattern. I've inspected half a dozen Voss projects. Every time, complaints aimed at neighboring landowners pop up right before permits clear. He handed me his card. If you need a witness, call me. I drove home with Carl's card snug in my pocket and anger like ice in my chest. Claudia wasn't just bulldozing my woods. She was trying to drown me in paper and fines while she finished the development. But she didn't know what Rachel already knew. Each of her moves was burying evidence deeper into the record. By Christmas, 84 houses were occupied. Strings of lights winked in windows, snowmen wore knitted scarves, and I had a court date penciled in for January 12th. On January 4th, 8 days before I was set to appear, my phone buzzed at 1:01 p.m. It was a message from Ava, my daughter. Dad, are you arrested? There's a post about you with 300 shares. I hadn't been on Facebook in years. I opened the app and found the post pinned to the Boulder County Community Watch page. Claudia's voice echoed from the pinned update. Alert. Local man Mason Holt has been stalking our family-friendly Ridgeview estates, photographing children, and making residents feel unsafe. He claims to own the neighborhood despite clear title. The sheriff's office is aware. Report sightings. Protect your families. The comments combusted. People called me a predator. Someone posted a photo of my truck with the plate visible and the caption, "This is his truck. Stay away." My hands trembled as I scrolled. Ava called, voice cracking. "Dad, they're saying you're a pedophile." "Mom's asking if you're okay." I called Rachel. She picked up on the first ring. "I see it. Don't respond. Don't comment. Don't feed them." "She's calling me a monster, Rachel." "My daughter's crying." "I know. It's defamation. We'll add it to the suit. But if you engage, you look guilty. This is a Hail Mary. They're trying to poison the well before court. Screenshot everything. Every share, every comment, it's all evidence of malice." I spent the night documenting the spread. By midnight, the post had hundreds of shares and a hashtag was trending locally. Number Stop Mason Holt. I didn't sleep. The next morning, my boss called me into his office. Martin, ex-Navy. Runs the engineering firm where I'd put in 14 years, closed the door. He's a good guy. But that morning, he was tender and practical. "Mason, I got a call from a prospective client. They Googled the firm and your name came up tied to this situation." My chest tightened. "I put you on personal leave effective today. 2 weeks paid. If this clears, you're back. If not." He let the sentence hang like a guillotine. I took the envelope and walked out. Walking to my truck, I passed Jenny from accounting. She didn't say hello. She crossed the lot to avoid me. That's when it hit me in the gut. Claudia wasn't just fighting over dirt. She was targeting my life, my work, my children's sense of safety. I called Rachel again. "They're destroying me," I said. "I'm on leave. People are avoiding me. I want a temporary restraining order against Claudia. Defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, tortious interference. We need an emergency hearing Monday." She paused. "Mason, you have to understand this gets worse before it gets better. If you want out, I'll negotiate. We could get you a settlement, maybe some cash to walk away. If you want to finish this, you have to be ready. They'll push harder." I thought about my father's note. "Don't let the snakes take what's yours." I said we were finishing it. Rachel warned me again. "Buckle up." On January 7th, someone spray-painted pervert on my garage door. I filed a police report. The responding officer, Patterson, took pictures like he was collecting forms at the DMV. "Probably someone who believed the post," he said, and agreed to increase patrols. That night I slept with a baseball bat beside the bed. January 9th, 3 days before court. Ava called me in tears. Someone had sent her the community post with captions. I drove to Fort Collins, sat on her couch, and explained everything: the deed, the tax receipts, Rachel's filings. She read through it and fury replaced fear. "She's making up everything," Ava said quietly. "Then we fight." Rachel still advised patience. "We don't respond until the hearing." Ava rolled her eyes. "Dad, you spend your life on defense. Just once. Hit first." Her words lodged under my ribs. January 11th. The night before court, my phone dinged. Unknown number. "Drop the suit, or everyone finds out what you really are." I forwarded it to Rachel. "Perfect," she texted back. "Bring your phone tomorrow. We're going to bury them." The county courthouse smelled like floor wax and reheated coffee. I met Rachel outside courtroom 3B at 8:45 a.m. She wore a navy suit that cost more than my truck and carried a leather briefcase with confident edges. "You ready?" she asked. My hands were sweating. I'd worn the old suit from Ava's graduation, the shoulders tight as a fist. "We have a nuclear option," she said, checking her watch. "Cassandra's team filed a motion to dismiss yesterday at 4:57 p.m. Classic stall. Judge Morales hates that." We entered. Claudia sat at the defense table with Brian Keller and Gregory Voss. Gregory looked like a man who'd never learned humility. Gray hair combed back. A suit that had settled 3 settlements into it. They whispered and smiled. Claudia saw me and actually grinned, like victory was a foregone conclusion. Judge Elena Morales took the bench, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses and zero patience. "Be seated." She read the caption. Case 2024-CV00921. Holt v. Voss Development LLC and Associated Parties. She looked to Keller. "Counselor, I received your motion to dismiss late yesterday. Explain why that's appropriate." Keller stood, cool and practiced. "Your Honor, the plaintiff's claim fails on its face. Voss Development holds title via adverse possession. Mr. Holt abandoned the property for over 3 years. Did he pay property taxes?" Morales interrupted. "Well, there are payments on the record," Keller hedged. When Rachel rose, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Your Honor, we're not here to litigate the mechanics of adverse possession in a motion to dismiss. We're here because the defendants proceeded with full knowledge of Mr. Holt's ownership and engaged in a pattern of fraudulent conduct." She opened her briefcase and handed exhibits to the clerk. "I'd like to submit Exhibit A, an internal email from Gregory Voss to Claudia Voss dated the 18th of February 2022. Copies were distributed. I craned forward to see. Keller's face lost color as Judge Morales scanned the page. "Counselor Keller, were you aware of this email?" she asked. Keller stammered. "Your Honor, this document was produced in discovery late last week. I have not personally seen it until now." Rachel's voice remained steady. "Perhaps it was misplaced in your office." She slid a copy toward me. My heart thudded as I read. It was clinical subject line. Old Mill Road Risk Assessment. Body. Cassie spoke to our title counsel. "The Holt parcel is not abandoned. The owner's grandson has been paying taxes since 2019. An adverse possession claim won't stand. If we move quickly, file the AP claim, pull permits, begin sales, we can create sufficient chaos to force a cheap settlement or bury him in costs. Worst case, build, then declare bankruptcy. We've executed this scheme before. Aspen Project, 2019. Risk, medium. Reward, 16% net." I read it again. They knew. From the start, they planned to steamroll my title and hope I'd cave. Rachel rose, voice steel. "Your Honor, this email shows intent. This is not an honest mistake or a gray area claim. It is premeditated fraud. This email proves the defendants acted with clear intent to defraud. They knew Mr. Rivers owned the land. They knew their adverse possession theory was nonsense. They went ahead anyway because they did the math most people can't afford to wage a multi-million-dollar legal fight." Judge Moreno looked at Hal and Marisol Ortega. "Is this email genuine?" Hal rose, then sat again when his lawyer, Keating, squeezed his arm. "Your Honor, we need to confer with our clients." That counted as a yes. The judge shut her folder. "Motion to dismiss is denied. This case will proceed on an expedited schedule, and I'm issuing a temporary restraining order. Ortega Development will immediately cease all sales, marketing, and any transfers of lots or homes associated with Pinecrest Ridge until this matter is resolved." She fixed Marisol with a stare. "And, Mrs. Ortega, one more social media post, one more anonymous complaint to code enforcement, one more threat aimed at Mr. Rivers, and I will hold you in contempt. Is that understood?" Marisol's confident mask cracked, the color drained from her face. "Yes, Your Honor," she whispered. Outside the courtroom, Lydia, my lawyer, turned to me with a small grin. "That email? It came from a whistleblower, one of Hal's old partners from the Breckenridge deal. He's been hoping for payback for 5 years. How did you get him?" I asked. She shrugged like she'd been waiting for the question. "I'm annoyingly good at this." For the first time in months, I felt the weight lift just enough to breathe. That night, I bought the kind of whiskey you don't usually buy and sat on the back steps watching the snow come down. My phone buzzed nonstop. Emma, my son Cole, Marcus in Wyoming. Even my ex, Jenna, with a cautious, "Heard you did well." The message that mattered was Lydia's at 9:47 p.m. "Office tomorrow. 10 a.m. Bring coffee. We're assembling the kill shot." I arrived at 9:30 with 2 large coffees and a box of donuts that felt oddly celebratory for planning someone's legal implosion. Lydia's conference room had a whiteboard that spanned the wall: names, dates, arrows drawn in marker like a crime map. She tore the top off a donut. "You brought breakfast? I like you already. What's all this?" I asked. She tapped the board with a marker. "This is how we turn your property fight into a criminal referral. The email is the spark. Now we bring the rest." She'd had her paralegal comb every Ortega project from the last decade. 7 developments, all in mountain counties, all with the same pattern. Find a parcel with fuzzy title or vulnerable owners. File aggressive adverse possession claims. Haul dirt, pull permits. Sell quickly. If anyone objects, drown them in paperwork or run them through bankruptcies and let insurers sort the mess. "They're not developers," Lydia said flatly. "They're land pirates wrapped in LLCs. "What makes my case different?" I asked. "You have receipts." She smiled like she'd found a rare coin. "Your grandfather's ledgers go back to 1970, every timber sale, fence repair, every tax payment logged in leather books that still smell like his pipe. You've got county surveys, GPS time-stamped photos, emailed tax confirmations. Most of their targets are elderly, poor, or sloppy with records. You kept everything." She laid out the plan. Phase 1, discovery. Depose Hal and Marisol, their title company, their lender, every contractor who pulled permits. People crack under oath. Title companies panic over losing licenses, and when frightened, they point fingers. Depositions are interrogation by persistence. Ask the same question 17 ways until contradictions appear. Phase 2, amend the complaint to add RICO counts. If we can show a pattern across multiple projects, we elevate this to federal court. Federal court brings treble damages and real leverage. She wrote numbers on the board that made my mouth go dry. Figures none of us expected them to be able to pay, and that's why they'd settle. "The best part," she said, "is that Hal and Marisol personally guaranteed loans. If their LLCs implode, lenders come after their houses, bank accounts, cars, everything." Her eyes gleamed at the prospect of asset seizure. I felt a grim satisfaction. "What do you need from me?" I asked. 3 things. 1. Your timeline, every visit, every date, time, who you talked to, Deputy Ramos, the code inspector, anyone. 2. Witnesses, neighbors, former employees, contractors, who were stiffed, anyone hurt by the Ortegas. 3. We go public the right way. Not Facebook, real reporters. She handed me a contact, a veteran investigative reporter at Channel 7 who loves corporate fraud. "You want headlines?" she asked. "I want us on TV, you, me, and every family who bought into Pinecrest Ridge thinking it was legit. They're victims, not the enemy." She slid a folder across the table. "Deposition schedule. Hal next Thursday, Marisol the week after. Be there. I want them to see your face while they're forced to answer." I opened the folder and read the list of questions Lydia planned to ask. It felt like a forensic blueprint. "How much will this cost me?" I asked. "Less than you think," she said. "If we win, the court awards attorney's fees. The Ortegas will pay. I'm asking for $60,000. Fraud cases shift costs to the guilty." I left with a plan and, for the first time since late summer, a real sense of purpose. Justice wasn't some slogan anymore. It was paperwork and precision and receipts. Preston Ortega's deposition was set for January 18th at 9 a.m. in a glassed conference room on the 14th floor, where the Rockies sat in the windows like indifferent onlookers. He arrived in a charcoal suit, flanked by Diane Kessler, a sharp, expensive attorney who smelled of cigarettes and contempt. He didn't look at me. The court reporter, a small woman whose stenograph clicked like a nervous insect, swore him in. Lydia began gently. Name, current address, occupation. Preston answered like a man running on rehearsed scripts. Then she placed Exhibit 1 on the table, the February 18th email. He glanced at it. "I do," he said when asked if he recognized it. "Did you write this?" Lydia asked. He stalled. Diane leaned in, hissed something, but the discovery order forced answers. He tried the little lies lawyers teach their clients. "I don't recall." That was a draft. Our title counsel advised otherwise. Lydia kept asking, calm and merciless. "Which title company?" she pressed. "Rocky Mountain Title Group?" Preston's jaw locked. He had no good answer. He knew where the trapdoor was, and he was already slipping. Question after question tightened the screws. By 11 he'd sweated through his shirt. By noon his answers had splintered into contradiction. When Lydia finally said, "No further questions," he practically ran for the door. Diane stayed behind, looked at Lydia with a mixture of irritation and respect, and murmured, "Your client should settle." "Name a number," Lydia said without emotion. "10 million, Diane replied after a beat. "Plus resignations, dissolve the investment vehicle, and personally fund the transfer of all homes to their buyers at cost." An apology. In writing. Diane gave a short, bitter laugh. "He'll never agree to that. Then we'll see him in court," she added, eyes hard. "And I'll make sure Channel 9's there to cover it." 2 days later, the storm I'd been bracing for finally broke. My phone rang at 6 p.m. It was Tyler, my son. He was 23, juggling his job as a line cook in Fort Collins while finishing culinary school. His voice trembled. "Dad, someone came to the restaurant." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean? Who?" "This guy in a suit," he said. "Said he's a private investigator. Asked my boss if I was dependable, if you'd ever been violent, if there were incidents he should know about." Tyler's breathing hitched. Now my manager's asking questions. He thinks I'm hiding something. I could lose my job, Dad. I closed my eyes, rage burning behind them. "What was his name?" He gave me a card. "Thomas Brennan, Apex Investigations." I scribbled it down. "Listen carefully, Tyler. Don't talk to him again. If he comes back, tell him everything goes through my lawyer." "Got it?" After hanging up, I called Lydia. No answer. I left a voicemail that probably sounded half delirious. She called back later that night. "I know," she said. "They've hired a PI to dig up anything they can. It's classic intimidation. Going after your kid's job. That's witness tampering, and that's a felony." Her tone could have frozen fire. "Send me a photo of that card. I'm filing an emergency motion in the morning." But things didn't slow down, they escalated. On January 23rd, an email arrived from the IRS. Subject: Notice of Audit. They were reviewing my returns for the past 3 years after a third-party report of irregularities. I knew it was nonsense. My taxes were simple, W-2 income, nothing fancy. It was pure harassment. I forwarded it straight to Lydia. She called within minutes. "They're burning every bridge," she said. "This is what happens when wealthy people start to panic. They weaponize money." "It's working," I muttered. "I can't fight an IRS audit on top of all this." "You won't have to," she said firmly. "That anonymous complaint? We'll subpoena Apex Investigations client files. If the Whitmores sent that report, it's another felony on the pile." She paused. "Dakota, they're making mistakes. And desperate people always do." By January 25th, their desperation spilled into public view. Someone leaked the Ridgeline Heights sales contracts to a Boulder real estate blog. 96 contracts, each proving buyers had paid between $450,000 and $530,000 for homes built on contested land. The headline hit like a grenade. Luxury developer sold homes on stolen property, buyers may lose everything. My inbox blew up. Panicked emails from homeowners. One woman, Sarah Chen, called me sobbing. "Please, Mr. Flint," she said, voice breaking. "I spent everything on this house. My insurance company says they won't cover the title because of the fraud. I've got 2 kids. This was supposed to be our forever home." I didn't know what to tell her. I'm not trying to take your house, I said quietly. I'm fighting the people who stole from both of us. But if you win, she asked, do we lose our home? No, I told her. You'll still own it. The developer will have to pay. And when she asked, what if they can't? I had no answer. That night, Lydia called again. Channel 9 wants to feature your story. Patricia Hughes is doing a segment on predatory developers. It airs February 2nd, a week before trial. I hesitated. What do I even say? The truth, she said. That you're fighting for your grandfather's legacy. That the Whitmores are the villains here. And that every family deserves to keep their home. I thought about Sarah's voice, trembling on the phone. Set it up, I said. The interview was scheduled for January 30th, at my house. Patricia Hughes arrived right on time, 2 p.m., with a cameraman named Steve, and enough lighting gear to film a Marvel sequel. She looked mid-40s, gray streak in her ponytail, wearing jeans and a blazer that said, I chase truth, not fashion. She shook my hand. Mr. Flint, I've been covering real estate fraud for over a decade. Your case is the boldest I've seen. While Steve arranged lights, I tried to pretend I hadn't just hidden a week's worth of laundry in my closet. Patricia reviewed her notes. I'll ask about your grandfather, the land, and what happened when you discovered the development, she said. Just talk to me, not the camera. We'll handle edits later. The interview lasted an hour and a half. I told her everything. Grandpa's ledgers, Cassandra's contempt, the smear campaigns, Preston's email, the families caught in the crossfire. Patricia's questions were sharp but fair. Talking to her felt like confessing to someone who already knew half the story. When we wrapped, she turned off the camera. Off the record, she said. I reached out to Cassandra Whitmore for comment. She threatened to sue me for defamation if we air this. Will you still run it? I asked. Patricia smiled. Threats mean I'm hitting the right nerve. The segment aired on February 2nd at 6 p.m. I watched alone with a beer I couldn't bring myself to drink. Patricia's voiceover began. He inherited the American dream 47 acres of Colorado forest. But when Dakota Flint returned to his family land, he found a nightmare. They showed aerial footage of Ridgeline Heights, my interview, Grandpa's deed, tax receipts, and that incriminating email. Patricia even dug up permit records showing the Whitmores had fast-tracked approvals after donating $50,000 to a county commissioner's campaign. It ended with my final words. I'm not here to hurt the families who bought these homes, they're victims too. But if people like the Whitmores can steal land and walk away clean, what's the point of having laws? My phone started lighting up before the segment ended. Emma called, crying this time out of pride. Marcus texted, Folk hero status unlocked. Even my boss, Martin, emailed, Come back Monday. We're proud to have you. But the message that mattered came at 7:15 p.m. from a blocked number. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. I forwarded it to Lydia. She called within seconds. Don't go anywhere alone, she said. Change your routines. Keep your doors locked. You think they'd actually? I think they're facing 10 years in financial ruin, she cut in. And scared people do dangerous things. She was right. 2 days later, February 4th, I came home from grocery shopping and found my front door slightly open. I knew I'd locked it. My pulse spiked. I called 911 from the porch. Deputy Torres arrived with backup and swept the house. Nothing was stolen. But on the kitchen table sat a single sheet of paper with 5 words in block letters. Drop it or lose everything. Torres bagged it carefully. We'll dust for prints. But if they were smart, they wore gloves. This was the Whitmores, I said. Can you prove that? He asked. I couldn't. 2 hours later, my neighbor Carol knocked on the door. 70 years old, retired librarian, sharp as ever. Dakota, she said. Yesterday I saw a black Audi SUV parked across from your house. Man in a suit got out, walked up your driveway, and left 10 minutes later. Thought he was selling something, but it felt off. Did you catch the plate? I asked. She smiled faintly. Of course. Wrote it down. She handed me a sticky note. Colorado plate KLM 4892. I gave it to Torres. He ran it. The car was registered to Apex Investigations, Thomas Brennan's firm. That's the same PI who harassed my son, I said. Torres sighed. Breaking and entering's a felony. But without video, proving it was him will be tough. So they just get away with it? I'll file the report. A detective will follow up. But Mr. Flint maybe stay somewhere else for a few days. That night I crashed on Emma's couch in Fort Collins, phone charging beside me, a baseball bat within reach. 3 days later, February 6th, Lydia called. The title company flipped, she said. Rocky Mountain Titles cooperating. They're admitting they knew the adverse possession claim was bogus but went along because Preston paid them $45 grand under the table. We have the emails, the payment logs, even recorded calls. So, we've got them. Yes, she said. But Cassandra knows it too. Her lawyer called, begging for a settlement conference. What'd you tell them? I said we'll see them in court. Silence lingered, heavy as snow. 3 more days, Dakota. Stay safe, stay quiet, and get ready to watch it all burn. That night, I stood at Emma's window watching snow drift over Fort Collins, wondering what Cassandra and Preston were plotting, and if I'd see their next move coming. February 9th, trial day. I wore the same suit from the first hearing, still tight in the shoulders, and drove to Boulder with Emma beside me. She refused to let me face it alone. Tyler wanted to come too, but after the PI mess, he couldn't risk missing work. The courthouse was chaos. News vans from Channel 9 and a local station had cameras on the steps. Patricia Hughes spotted me and waved. I kept my head down. Lydia had warned me no press before trial. Inside, courtroom 3C was packed. Notices had gone out to all 96 Ridgeline Heights families, and nearly half showed up. I spotted Sarah Chen 3 rows back, eyes fixed on me, part hope, part fear. At the defense table sat Cassandra and Preston, flanked by their lawyers, Brian Kemper, Diane Kelso, and 2 more unfamiliar faces. Reinforcements. Cassandra wore a cream suit that screamed money, but her hands trembled each time she lifted her water glass. When Judge Ramirez entered, we all rose, and I knew one way or another everything was about to change. Before we begin, the judge said, peering over her reading glasses at the crowded gallery, let me make one thing perfectly clear. This is a courtroom, not a theater. Anyone causing a disturbance will be removed immediately. Understood? A murmur of assent swept through the room. Miss Chen, your opening statement. Lydia rose, and silence fell like a blanket over the packed space. She didn't need a microphone, her voice projected with the calm authority of rolling thunder. Your Honor, this case is about theft. Not the kind carried out in dark alleys with masks and guns, but the kind that takes place in boardrooms, behind LLCs, and with forged paperwork. Dakota Flint inherited 47 acres from his grandfather, a man who paid cash in 1971 and maintained every inch of that property for nearly 5 decades. When Dakota couldn't visit for 3 years due to work and family, the defendants saw an opportunity. She stepped toward the jury box, or where it would have been in a bench trial. Old habits die hard. They didn't merely build on his land. They meticulously planned it. They researched every angle. They knew exactly what they were doing. She held up a giant print of Preston's email. This email, she said, pointing, proves the defendants were fully aware Dakota Flint owned this property. They knew their adverse possession claim would fail, but they built anyway, counting on most people lacking the means to fight back. She paused, letting it sink in. But they made a critical error. They targeted the wrong person. Dakota Flint kept every receipt, every tax form, every survey map, and he refused to back down. Turning toward Cassandra and Preston, she continued, the defendants committed fraud. They broke into Mr. Flint's home. They employed private investigators to intimidate his children. They filed false IRS complaints. They turned his life upside down simply because he demanded his legal rights be respected. Returning to our table, she concluded, Your Honor, we're not asking for mercy. We're asking for justice. And we have the evidence to prove it. She sat. I finally exhaled, for the first time in what felt like minutes. Diane Kelso stood for the defense. She tried credit where due. She argued the title company had acted innocently, that Preston's email was being misinterpreted, and that adverse possession law was nuanced and often misunderstood. But Judge Ramirez wasn't buying it. Her narrowed eyes and tight-lipped expression spoke volumes. The trial stretched for 7 grueling hours. Lydia called witnesses. The title company representative who admitted taking a bribe, Rick Polson from Code Enforcement detailing patterns of false complaints, Deputy Torres recounting the harassment campaign. Grandpa's ledgers went into evidence, the tobacco-scented pages proving uninterrupted ownership for 50 years. Preston took the stand, and Lydia dismantled him in under an hour. Every question was a trap. Every answer dug him deeper. By the end, he stammered, contradicted his own deposition, and searched for rescue from Diane Kelso, who never came. Cassandra invoked the Fifth Amendment. Her attorneys likely begged her not to speak. Any testimony would have been self-destructive. At 4:47 p.m., Judge Ramirez announced a ruling would be issued within 24 hours. We filed out into the hallway, where the Ridgeline Heights homeowners swarmed. Sarah Chen grabbed my arm. "What happens to us?" she asked. "If you win, do we lose our homes?" I looked to Lydia. She nodded. I addressed the crowd, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You will keep your homes, every single one of you. The Whitmores committed fraud. You are not at fault. Your houses remain yours, free and clear. That is the settlement we are demanding." The hallway went quiet. Then someone clapped, and another followed. Within moments, 40 people were applauding, tears and smiles intermingling. Cassandra passed, flanked by her lawyers, eyes locked on me in pure hatred before vanishing into the elevator. Outside, Patricia Hughes caught me on the courthouse steps. "How are you feeling, Mr. Flint?" I gazed at the cameras, at Emma by my side, at the Rockies stretching snow-capped in the distance, timeless, unwavering, like Grandpa watching. I think he'd be proud," I said. That night, the clip went viral, 3 million views in 12 hours. The next morning, Judge Ramirez issued the formal ruling. We had won. Completely. Her 18-page decision summarized everything. The defendants orchestrated a deliberate, systematic plan to defraud Dakota Flint of his rightful property through false adverse possession claims, bribery of officials, and intentional misrepresentation. Their actions were reprehensible and would not be tolerated. The ruling granted me full title to all 47 acres, including the 96 homes, and awarded $4.2 million for trespass, emotional distress, and loss of use. The Whitmores were responsible for Lydia's $73,000 legal fees, and the case was referred to the U.S. Attorney for Criminal Prosecution. Cassandra and Preston were finished. Ridgeline Capital dissolved within a week. Personal assets, the Range Rover. Aspen Vacation Home. Cassandra's jewelry were auctioned to pay creditors. Preston was indicted on 6 federal fraud counts. Cassandra accepted a plea, 3 years probation, $500,000 restitution, and a lifetime ban from Colorado real estate development. The title company lost its license, and Brian Kemper resigned quietly to avoid embarrassment. One new challenge remained: what to do with the 96 families living on my land. Legally, I could have evicted them, sold the homes myself, and pocketed another $16 million. That's what the law allowed. And many expected it. Instead, on March 15th, I called a town hall at Ridgeline Heights. All 96 families showed up, filling the unfinished clubhouse Cassandra had promised but never built. Sarah Chen stood front and center, holding her daughter's hand. The Rodriguez couple sat near the back, looking tense. These weren't villains, they were teachers, nurses, electricians, people who'd saved for decades to buy a piece of the American dream. I stepped forward, Lydia at my side. "I know you're scared," I began. "You bought in good faith. You did nothing wrong. I'm not here to punish you for someone else's crime." The room was still, every ear tuned to me. Even as the snow outside melted quietly on the roof, Here's what we're doing. Ownership of all 96 homes will be transferred to the Ridgeline Heights Community Trust, a non-profit we're establishing today. Each family retains their home through the trust at the original purchase price, no mortgages, no interest, just what you've already invested. Finished payments? You complete them to the trust at 0 interest. Gasps and tears. Sarah Chen wept openly. The trust will fund road maintenance, property taxes, and even a scholarship for children here. My grandfather believed land was about legacy, not profit. This is his legacy. Applause started quietly, then swelled like a summer storm. Hugs, tears, and shouts of thanks filled the room. Mr. Rodriguez shook my hand with surprising strength. "You're a good man," he said. "Your grandfather raised you right." The scholarship launched in September. The William Flint Memorial Scholarship, $10,000 annually for a Colorado student studying engineering, forestry, or environmental science. Emma helped me set it up. Grandpa's ledgers, once filled with timber records, now funded education. I kept 5 acres at the north end, where the old-growth pines remain. Built a modest cabin, 2 bedrooms. Simple. Sold my town home and moved in last October. Every morning, pine-scented air and coffee, deer grazing outside. Tyler visits on weekends. Emma brings her law student boyfriend. Jennifer, my ex, visited once with her new husband. Strange, but good. Patricia Hughes followed up in December. From theft to triumph, one man turned injustice into justice. Her story won her 3rd Emmy. Recently, Sarah Chen's daughter drew me a picture, a crayon house with a stick figure labeled Mr. Dakota, holding a giant deed. It's on my fridge, held by a Colorado-shaped magnet. I think of Grandpa's note, "Don't let the bastards take what's yours." He was right. But what's mine isn't just land or money, it's knowing 96 families sleep safely. It's a scholarship helping a kid like me once was. Broke, stubborn, fighting to build something. That's justice. The kind that heals. So here's my question. Have you ever faced an HOA nightmare? A property fight? Someone trying to steamroll you because they had money and you didn't? Share your story in the comments. Let's build a library of ordinary people beating corrupt systems. If this story inspired you, hit subscribe. More tales are coming about the little guy outsmarting the machine, with receipts to prove it. Next week, City Council denied my business permit. I found the bylaw that made me untouchable. See you then. And remember, keep your receipts. All of them.